Hello everyone, welcome back to Steve Vision. I'm Stephen Christopher Sheppard. On tonight's show, I'm going to be talking about growing up in South Carolina. Before I talk about South Carolina, I would like to clarify a few conversations about Florida. I was born in Virginia, and my father got a better job at a dealership in Melbourne, Florida. So he moved my mother and my two sisters and I to Satellite Beach around 1976. And I took to the beach because we lived at a hotel for a while, right on the beach in Satellite Beach. It was pretty. So I took to the beach instantly on a styrofoam surfboard. And like on the first night, I had broke my styrofoam surfboard and I got another one. Eventually, I got one of the first GNS twin fin surfboards, and I started surfing immediately. And by the time I was 12 years old, 10, 11 or 12, I can't quite remember, I was a very good surfer. And I had sponsors to surf in the Eastern Surfing Association. I played football, baseball, I was on the swim team, surfed, I played in the theater, a celebrity in the theater. I took ballet classes or jazz classes because they were free for me. And then I had free time with my family and friends and to study. And it was getting hard on me because as a surfer growing up in Cocoa Beach, Florida, I was already burned from the red tide. And I was hustling my mother to move to South Carolina. I was encouraging her to. So, let's go. That's fine with me. And my sisters were cool with it too. So by the time my mother was ready to go from a nice place in Cocoa Beach, I just had enough of the red tide. You know, I was already on fire. And so my mother moved us up to Lawrence, South Carolina. And we found a place to live eventually down by one of my first best friends too, Mike Padgett and his family. Mike Padgett and I became friends instantly. And one of the funniest things that I ever got to witness in Lawrence, South Carolina was one night when Mike Padgett and his little brother and we had made a dummy and set it out by the roadside. I had made a head that looked like Abraham Lincoln, dried in the sun, like a really pretty, makeup, perfect, jerk beef looking Abraham Lincoln paper mache. And I showed that to Mike, and boy, he wanted to make a dummy so fast. It was like magic, you know. He said, "Oh my, I gotta see a dummy." And I was like, "Why though?" He's like, "Oh, let's set it out by the road and watch people go by." And Mike Padgett was a character when he was young. He grew up fast though, because I had brought Mike and his wife Lena together in middle school when I moved up there. Mike and I also worked in the cafeteria in middle school. But we set this dummy out one night down by the road that we lived on that connected to the Royal Route through Lawrence. People coming off of 2nd and 3rd. And Mike and Jamie and I, we made this little fort over in the woods where Bigfoot might live. And we were watching that road where that dummy was. We had that dummy in the road so perfectly right in the moon that you couldn't tell if it was a human or not unless you put a microscope or something. Because if you looked at it under the moon just right, I mean, it was like something Bigfoot was eating on, you know? I mean, there's a dummy that looked like a human, in other words, right off the road. It wasn't in the right-of-way. It was for our entertainment. It was an experiment that we were practicing, trying to understand what the fuck it is that we tried to laugh like hell about as boys. Because Mike was a smart boy. I mean, Mike, boys in South Carolina were conservatives, man. But they sit in front of the television with their best friends like me and heckle at the television. And that's how we get to communicating with each other, you know. So we learned quick that, you know, the boy had a sense of humor. Real good one. You know, he grew up when he got married off. But we set that dummy out, right? And people came by. The first one was the greatest. I have to admit, the first one that came by that night was the very best one ever. We were over in that fort, over in the woods, where we could see over to the road where that dummy was in the moonlight. And you could feel that car coming down. And Jamie, boy, he was ready for it. You know, Jamie, like, real excited, moving through the woods like a Sasquatch because we had dark clothes on and everything. Just like the Green Berets when they're 10, you know. And Jamie like, car coming, here it comes. And we all squat down, watching through that fort, through the trees. And that car came slowly crawling down. The brakes were on, lights on, slowly making its way to that dummy. You could tell. I mean, brothers, you could tell that somebody in that car had spotted that dummy. You know what I'm saying? I mean, somebody spotted that dummy. Showed up. That was the first thing that pops into your mind when you're crazy. You know, when you're a funny ass young man. Mike Padgett and Jamie, boys can laugh, boy. That night we saw that car, now, as he come down the road, slowed down, put on his brakes, nice and slow, like the villain of Sasquatch himself had come. Dropped the body, and they pulled up next to that dummy. And boy, it didn't take long. You heard this woman. It was a woman scream. Ah! And then it stopped. That V8 engine lit up. And when those two sounds came together, like they did, there might have been a few other words after, like, what the fuck is going on? Go. I think that was something like that. But that car spun off. That car spun off. That car, it spun off to the move fast. They had seen a motherfucking dummy made by some genius little southern boys. I mean, the face of that dummy would fool you, because I was an artist when I was that age. I could make things with paper mache and chicken wire. That's all I really did. You know, played with it until it was right. And I put makeup on it, eyes. I mean, it looked like the sun-dried beef jerk head of Abraham Lincoln. And when I showed that to Mike, I wasn't thinking dummy. But Mike, when he saw that head so right and pretty, his mind went into action. And we had to understand that experiment for some reason.